always nice to begin our practice, to focus on our breathing and get in tune with our bodies and our minds. Yoga teachers we're always telling you to focus on your breath and work with your breath and work with your breathing. And why is that? Well, I think it's wise to base our happiness on something that's consistent and stable and something that's solid in life. And there's nothing that's more consistent throughout our entire lives than our breathing. The way that we respirate and move the energy throughout our body. And it does make kind of a difference how we perceive the breath and how that energy can flow through the body. So, when we take a deep breath, do you perceive of the breath as coming from outside, or can we perceive of there's something within us that pulls that energy into the body? So the breath energy really starts from within. When we notice that, we can begin to realize how much energy there is within us that allows us to move the body into these forms throughout this practice. So let's take a moment here before we begin to just breathe, to realize the potential of a single breath. To bring our attention, to all of our concentration, to this moment, here and now. Noticing the stomach rising and falling with each inhale and exhale. And we can notice our spine and our back as we sit up tall. Sit proud, like a king on the throne. Earth is our throne. There's nothing more noble to sit on than the ground. So we sit tall and we notice our bodies and notice our form, and we tend to have this mental image of the body, of what this form looks like in our minds. But notice what it really is as we're sitting here. Like, notice the little sensations in each part of the spine, and any energy that might be caught there, any tensions that we might have been carrying with us. Often with the exhales, it helps to imagine those tensions leaving the body and out through the arms and out the palms, and down through the legs and out the feet. You imagine the energy coming in through the nose and into the heart. Noticing that we have the ability to move our attention and our energy throughout our body. And that's just a beautiful thing to be able to fulfill a pose and a practice. Even just by breathing. You can bring that breath energy into vibrations and solidify this intention to follow this class, not to miss a single breath throughout this hour. We can take a deep inhalation together and Om together. We can begin to open our eyes and bow. Let's bow with a flat back, bringing our heart parallel to the mat, and lifting up with a straight spine, finding a place where the core and the back muscles are equally engaged as we're sitting up tall. We're going to start in a butterfly position, Kapotasana, as we bring our heels and the outsides of our feet together and roll our calves a little bit forwards and roll our thighs a little bit back. Just gently trying to open our hips as we sit tall. And bow the heart to the toes, trying to bow with a flat back, not pushing yourself too far, just gently noticing how open those hips are naturally. And exhaling into the bow, getting rid of all the stale air in our lungs. Inhaling back up to center and sitting tall. Feeling those shoulder blades pull out to the back. Bring our arms out to airplane. We're going to take some eagle arms and begin to open up our shoulders, starting with that right arm underneath the left, the palms together, lifting those elbows as high as the shoulders, keeping that back flat. And we'll bow again in our Kapotasana. Exhaling all the way down, inhaling all the way up, lifting up and unwinding. Our arms come out to our airplane. We'll try the other side. Left arm underneath the right. Palms come together. Elbows come up to shoulder height. We squeeze the hands together only as much as we pull the shoulders onto the back. And then lifting tall with a long spine. We take our third bow. Exhaling all the way down. Feeling those hips open just a little bit more. And we lift ourselves up to center. Unwinding the hands. Putting our hands on the outsides of our legs and bringing our knees together. We're going to find a kneeling position. As we bring our hips just over our knees, tucking the left toes behind us and bringing that right foot out to the right. Preparing for our gatekeeper's pose as we warm up the side bodies. Inhaling to lift up, growing tall, lifting through both sides. That right hand grabs the outside of this left palm, giving a little bit of a massage to this tendon that runs all the way down that outside of that left hand as we exhale and fold to the right. Keeping that right side body long, reaching out, trying to get that hand just over your heel as you stack those shoulders. Inhale to release, bringing our arms out, long, warrior arms, trying to expand the full wingspan as you open the heart just a little bit. Let's bring the left palm down to the mat, lift that right foot up, pushing out through the heel for a baby half moon, stacking those hips and lifting that heel. Exhaling to release, lifting ourselves back up to center with our core. Our hands come to our heart, and we'll flip the right knee in. The left foot comes long to the left. With a long spine, lengthening the side bodies, opening up tall. See how tall you can grow here. The palms go flat to the wall in front of you. The left hand grabs the outside of this right palm, giving this wrist a little bit of a massage as we exhale off to the left, lengthening both side bodies, pulling that left foot in, and exhaling all your air out of your lungs as you reach through the side body. Inhaling up to center, bringing our arms out long. Warrior arms. Our arms like swords, keeping them strong, pulling the muscle into the bone. And that right palm comes flat to the mat, and we lift that left foot up off the mat. Maybe gazing over the left hand, pushing out through that left heel, lifting that left foot, testing those leg muscles on the left side, seeing how high you can get that foot to lift, keeping those shoulders stacked on top of one another. And on our exhale, we pick ourselves back up. Our hands can come to our heart and to the mat in front of us. And let's step this right foot out to the right and find our wide-legged forward fold. Exhaling as we bow, lifting the tailbone behind us as we bow the head between the feet, letting that upper body dangle under its own weight. We can walk our hands out forwards, coming up onto our fingertips. And then walk our hands over to the left, keeping the hips squared between the feet, trying to keep the hips and the feet even as we walk our hands over to the right. Taking a deep breath here. And our hands come back to center. Hands can come to our hips. And we rise up. Growing tall, lifting into the 5-pointed star. Our feet can each turn about 45 degrees out as we expand in all directions. Find your expansive nature. Our arms come into cactus arms, opening the heart, and we bend those knees. Finding the goddess squat, bouncing our hips. Lifting up tall, wiggling our feet. Bringing them in just a little bit more. We're going to put the right toes facing forwards. Find our warrior 2. Flipping our front palm to reverse the warrior. Trying to form a straight line between that back leg and the top hand in our side angle pose. So we're lengthening our right side body. The right hand can come down in front of the foot. And the left hand comes down to meet it. Lift that left heel. And the right foot steps back, finding our plank pose. Finding a strong plank with a long spine, pulling those toes into the hands, pulling the hands back towards the toes, using your core to hold your whole body together, squeezing the mat at the core. Let's lower down for our first chaturanga, down dasana, being very mindful, very slow and intentional in our movements. Flipping our toes, lifting up into a low cobra, starting with a low cobra where you can just get the ribs off the mat. And notice how much strength you can pull into the core to find that back bend. Maybe lifting those hands an inch off the mat, and then setting them back down, trying to keep at least half of your lift coming from your core, the other half pulling your heart forwards with your fingertips. And then we tuck our toes and find our downward facing dog, pedaling out our feet. We're going to lift the right foot out behind us, lifting it as high as it goes, and step the right foot forward between the hands. The left foot comes perpendicular, lifting ourselves back up into our warrior 2, squeezing those feet together. Flipping our palm, reversing the warrior. And coming back out to the warrior 2, Virabhadrasana 2. Our hands come down to the inside of that foot. We're going to walk them to center, finding Eka Pada Galavasana, the wide-legged forward fold. And walking our way over to the left. Lifting up into warrior 2 on this side. Finding our full wingspan. Flipping the left palm, reaching up and for the wall behind us. Pulling that shoulder blade onto the back as you lengthen through the left side body. Bending the elbow, bringing it over the leg as you find our side angle pose. Pulling those feet inwards and together, keeping that knee just above your heel, opening the heart so the shoulders are stacked. And lifting our hands up into warrior 2. Windmilling them down to frame that front foot. And stepping our left foot back, finding our plank pose. Again, finding our form in our plank pose with a long spine. Pulling the feet towards the hands and the hands towards the feet. Finding our core strength, and all of our strength coming from the core, from our breathing. Very mindful, intentional, deep breaths. Take a very slow exhale as we lower down. down, Chaturanga Dandasana. Bringing our hips to the mat, flipping our toes, lifting up into our low cobra, keeping it low at first as we pull those shoulders back to the back, lifting those heels of the hands, maybe lifting the hands an inch above the mat, finding your core strength, setting the fingers down back to the mat, and pulling the heart forwards with your arms as you engage that core strength to pull the ribs in and up. Let's tuck our toes behind us and push back into our downward facing dog. Paddling out those feet, squeezing those hands together on the mat, lifting our tailbone up behind us. And bowing the heart to our toes. Lifting our left foot up behind us, three-legged dog, seeing how high it can get. And stepping our left foot forwards. Windmilling up into Warrior Two. And equaling out our warm-up as you flip the palm. Reverse the warrior. Deep breath here. And find our side angle. Let's bring our hands down to the inside of that foot. Walk our hands back to center. Bow our heart between the heels. Maybe you can use your 2 fingers and thumbs. Hook the big toes and engage your arms to pull your heart down to the mat. Bending the knees just a little bit. And then a little bit more, finding our goddess squat here, our wide-legged chair. The toes can turn out 45 degrees each. Finding our squat, letting the hips bounce a little bit lower than before. Then lifting up tall, finding the 5-pointed star. Let's bring our hands to our heart as our hips sink back into our squat. Bouncing our weight onto that left foot and then the right foot. Testing your weight each ways. Maybe seeing if you can put all your weight on that right foot. Lift this left foot up. Step it down, finding chair pose. Kapotasana. From our chair, pulling those shoulder blades down towards the hips, opening the heart, lifting our arms up tall. Hands come to our heart. We're going to find a prayer twist. The left elbow crosses over to the right. And you exhale into the twist as you bring your heart to the center of your hands. Don't bring your hands to your heart. Bring your heart up as you lengthen that left side body up. Exhale and release. Coming back, Kapotasana, the chair pose. Balancing those hips. Left hand to the left thigh. The right elbow crosses over. Finding our prayer hands. Lifting the heart. Inhale to lengthen the spine. Exhale to twist just a little bit deeper. And inhale to release. Finding our chair and bow, straightening the knees. You can grab your ankles. You can grab your elbows and let your upper body release as you swing from left to right and right to left in a rag doll. Finding whatever helps you to open up your forward folding. And we'll release our elbows. And rise up, hinging from the hips. Growing tall. Bring our hands to our heart. And find your place in the center of the mat. Let's follow through a moon salutation in honor of this beautiful full moon yesterday, a couple days ago. You can see all the craters in the moon. So we start with our hands flat to the wall in front of us. That right hand grabs the outside of this left palm, giving this tendon a little massage as we find our standing crescent
folding all the way to the right, lengthening the left side body. Don't let the right side body collapse either. Inhaling up to center, keep the grip. Find your weight on that left foot. The right big toe comes out to the right. You can use that as a kickstand and test your balance as we fold again to the right. Keeping those shoulders stacked, exhaling all the way into the fold, inhaling up to center. Then you can lift that toe off the mat, push out through that right heel, lift that foot as high as it goes, and exhale to the right, finding our standing crescent balance pose. Lifting up back to center. Our hands come apart. We find a gentle back bend, opening our heart to the ceiling. Inhaling back up to center, growing tall. Left hand grabs the outside of that right palm, giving this wrist a little massage as we fold to the left. Lengthening that right side body, hollowing out that armpit as you reach through the arm. Inhaling up to center. We're going to use the left big toe as a kickstand, testing your balance on that right foot. As you exhale to fold all the way to the left. And inhale, using the side body to lift the self back up. Testing your balance, pushing out to the left heel, lifting that left foot as high as it'll go to the left. And we exhale and fold to the left. Testing our standing crescent balance. Inhaling up to center, feet come together, hands come to our heart. Bending our knees, finding our chair pose. Lifting up tall. When we find the shoulder blades onto the back, keep them there while we bring our hands into our prayer. Testing our weight into our chair, maybe finding a one-legged chair. And setting that foot back down, and we'll try the other foot. Setting back down, finding our chair. I like to tap the middle fingers to the mat to find about the height that the shoulders should be at, and keep them there. Let's find our one-legged chair, lifting the left foot, and see if we can cross that left knee behind the right for the dancing Shiva squat. Setting that left foot back down into our chair, bouncing our hips, lifting that right foot, and find dancing Shiva on this side. Setting that right foot down, finding our chair, bouncing our hips. We're going to stand tall, lifting up. We're going to find another crescent with our palms flat. The right hand grabs the left palm. We exhale out to the right. Lift that left foot up and off the mat. And this time, if you can hold your balance here, bring our arms into a T and see if you can touch down into a half moon. Ha! Pushing out through that back heel, lifting that foot up as high as the hip, and lifting ourselves back up to center. And finding our stability on both of our feet. It helps to make sure that you have a 90-degree angle at your heels, each foot about 45 degrees. And we try the other side. The left hand grabs the outside of that right palm. Lift that left foot. Push out to that heel. Find your stability here. Arms come out into a T. Let's see if we can tap down into half moon. Trying to lift that foot as high as the hip. Trying to keep those shoulders stacked. Finding your way to half moon, however you get there. And maybe lifting your way back up. Finding our wide-legged chair. Meeting me here, however you get here. Wide-legged chair pose. Balancing our weight onto the left foot and onto the right. See if we can find our Shiva squats from the wide-legged chair. A little bit more intensive the wider you step. We'll try it on each side, testing your balance. And then stepping out wide and letting our hips sink into the goddess pose. Our arms come out in the cactus, balancing our hips, expanding in all directions. Uttita Tadasana, 5-pointed star. Find our wide-legged forward fold as we exhale and bow. Let's walk our hands over to the right, spinning those right toes forwards, lifting that left heel off the mat and lift up into our high lunge pose. Shoulders pull onto the back. You reach up through the arms, pulling the muscles into the bone. Keeping our core strong, making sure that you're pulling your ribs in and up. Pulling those feet together. As we exhale, release those hands to the inside, or to frame the foot. Frame the foot, our weight comes onto the left foot and the left toes. You lift that right foot off the mat and step it back, finding our plank pose. Keeping our strong flat back in our plank. Filling out the mid-back with our muscles. And bending our arms with the elbows at our sides for Chaturanga Dandasana. Lifting up into our cobra. You can take a high cobra this time. Make sure you're using your core to lift yourself as much as your arms. And then we'll tuck our toes. Find your up dog and your down dog. Take a few breaths here, finding the stability of the four-legged pose. Trying to find an equal balance of your weight on your feet and your hands. Noticing what that feels like. We're going to lift that right foot off of the mat and step that forwards onto the outside of the hands. Testing our runner's lunge. Let's bring the left knee down to the mat and come down onto our elbows for the lizard lunge as we're opening up that right hip. And we sink the shoulders to the inside, trying to get them closer to the ankle. Taking deep breaths all the way down into that right hip, all the way through the right side body. Taking a moment to feel that hip release as you release any tension left in the lower back and in the body, in the leg. We'll lift our weight onto our hands and wiggle that foot to the left, finding Pigeon Pose. Opening up that hip, just seeing if we can get this ankle just beneath the shoulder, or beneath the armpits. We can bring our arms out long, finding our pigeon here, our sleepy pigeon. Trying to bring that left hip forwards. Trying to keep it in line with the right. Taking a few deep restorative breaths here as we regain our energy and lift ourselves back up onto our hands. Let's place that right hip onto the mat. Bring this left knee in so we have about a 90-degree angle here. And we're going to find our deer pose as we walk our hands all the way around to the right. See if you can find your right foot. Maybe you can see it. Maybe you can reach for it. Find the twist. Take a deep breath here. And then we'll walk our hands back around to the other side. Maybe crossing that right elbow into the arch of the right foot. Finding our hands and our heart. And lifting the heart to the center of the hands as we look up.
Exhaling to release. Coming back onto our hands. And we're gonna just keep our feet where they are and flip the knees to the opposite side. Starting with our deer pose on this side as we find the twist, walking our hands all the way to the left. Maybe you can see that. Is that the left foot? No, that's the right foot that you see on the left. And you reach for it with the left hand. Maybe you see it, maybe you reach for it. Maybe you just take a deep breath and twist. Whatever works for you. Find the stretch and we release. Walking our hands back to center. Let's cross the left elbow over the arch of the left heel. Hands come to our heart. Looking up, lifting the heart. Taking a deep exhale as we twist. And inhaling back to center. We're going to find our pigeon pose on this side. So we straighten that right leg. Wiggle this left foot in and behind. So the ankle is kind of just beneath the shoulder. When you try to find that, you try to bring that right hip forwards to keep the hips in line with one another. We can wiggle our fingers as far forwards as they'll go. Taking a few deep breaths all the way into that left hip. Feeling the air come down through the left side body and fill up that lower back. Regaining your energy in this leg, in your core. Coming back onto our hands, tucking the right toes underneath. We're going to step this left foot into our lizard lunge, finding the lizard on this side. So we can come back up on the left and even it out. Taking a few deep breaths here. And bring that leg in to the side body. Tucking those toes behind you. Coming up onto our hands, lifting that right knee off the mat. And finding our high lunge, however you get there. Lifting up. With our shoulders pulling down the back. Our arms lifting high. Keeping those ribs pulling in and down to the belly button. As the shoulder blades pull down to the back and the fingers and the muscles in the arms reach up to the sky. Squeezing those hands together. And bringing our hands to our heart. Squeezing those feet together. We'll bow our hands inside of that foot. Walking them back to center, spinning our feet forwards into our forward fold, wide-legged forward fold, and exhaling as we bow. Inhaling up to center. Exhaling again to bow. Let's walk the hands behind us. See how far we can fold forwards. Lifting our tailbone up behind us. Maybe you can try to bring the top of your head to the mats. Exhaling to release. Hands come to our hips. And we rise up tall. Finding our shoulder blades in alignment with our hips. Hands come to our heart. Bouncing those hips, those feet at about 45 degrees. We're going to try our Shiva squat from here. And if you are challenged with that one, you can wiggle your feet closer together to make it easier. But either way, you test your weight on that right foot. And see if you can cross that left knee behind the right. And step it out long. Coming back into our goddess squat. I like to keep the hands at the heart for stability. And you test your weight on that left foot. Crossing that right knee behind the left. And stepping it back out. Finding a little bit of a wide-legged chair here. You can lift into a one-legged chair and cross that ankle over. Cross the left ankle over the right. And fold forwards with the hands coming down to the feet. See See if you can tuck those toes around that right shoulder as we bow. Exhaling as you lift the tailbone up behind you. Inhaling to reach the hands out forwards. You can walk them over to the right. And see if you can cross this left elbow to the outside of that right. Left elbow outside the left foot, left heel. Walk our hands back to center. Trying to find our balance on that foot. Sitting into our figure 4 chair pose. Lifting this knee into one-legged chair and setting it back down. We can stand for a moment. Release, maybe stepping on the toes to loosen anything else up. Before we try the other side, starting from chair, lifting that right heel up off the mat, finding stability here, crossing the ankle over the thigh. And we bow and bring the hands down to the mat. See if we can hook these toes around the shoulder. Just notice how that feels. Maybe walking your hands to frame the foot so your fingertips are in line with your big toe. Once you feel the tuck with the left toe around the right toe around the left shoulder, just remember how that feels, and then you can release and bring our hands out forwards and walk our hands over to the left, maybe crossing the right elbow outside the left foot so that the right heel comes to the right tricep. And just testing your weight here, maybe finding your prayer twist if you did that on the other side. Releasing our hands back to center, finding our weight on our left foot, lifting ourselves back up. The opposite side, let's find our tree pose. The knee comes into our heart, standing tall, standing balance. The right hand can come to the ankle. We place the heel to the inside of the thigh. Testing your balance. Hands can come back to our heart, finding stability, trying to open this hip out behind us. And grow your arms like branches, opening the heart, standing tall, finding stability wherever it may be. Bring our feet back together. Finding a moment to even out your sides. From our tree pose, we're going to step into a wide-legged forward fold. Lifting our hips, hands on our hips. We can bind the hands behind the back as we open the heart and then bow the heart between the feet. Releasing the bind as the hands come to the mat. And we can walk them over to the right, spinning those right foot forwards, lifting the left heel off of the mat. And bowing into our low lunge. The left knee comes down to the mat. The hips come square, the shoulders pull down back. The arms grow tall. The heart opens. Taking a deep breath here. Anjaneyasana. And exhaling to release the hands to frame the foot. Straightening that right leg, pointing the toes, and Ardha Hanumanasana, the half splits. Let's walk our hands forwards to frame that foot. Lift that left knee off of the mat. Spin the heel down to the mat. And find crouching tiger. So this is our half. Sort of a half chair on the right side. And the hip can come really low. And we lift those toes up. You can reach the left hand for the toes. If that works for you, with the right hand still at heart. Or you can wrap that right arm around the right leg and find a bind as we stack those shoulders. Taking a deep breath here. You can exhale to release. Bring our hands down to the mat and stepping or hopping into our Malasana squat. Taking a moment in the Malasana. We can find our binds here as well as we're opening our shoulders. At each side of our Malasana bind. You can stay here if you like, or if Crow Pose Bakasana is part of your practice. And now is the time to place the hands in front of our big toes, come up onto the toes, push our weight forwards so that our center of gravity is behind our knuckles, and pull the hands together as you try to straighten the arms and lift the hips, keeping those knees and the legs squeezing in on the outsides of the shoulders, trying to keep them as high on the arms as you can. Holding here for just a few breaths of air. And we release, finding our Malasana. Our hands can come to the mat. And you can lift that right foot out and to the right, finding Skandasana on this side. That right heel comes down to the mat. The toes come up. The right hand can reach for those toes as the left hand stays at the heart. Finding your balance here. Maybe you can add the bind if you would like, as you try to stack the shoulders and look up. Finding our crouching tiger. Hands come to the mat. And we walk them forwards to frame that left foot. That right heel floats up. The right knee comes down to the mat. We find Anjaneyasana, the low lunge. Our hips come square. Shoulders pull away from the earlobes. As the heart opens, we find a gentle back bend here. Squeezing those feet together and pulling the ribs into the core. Pulling the muscles into the bones on the arms. As we bring our hands to frame the left foot. Straightening that left knee, pointing the toe, Ardha Hanumanasana. The half splits. Bowing over that left leg. And we'll walk our hands back forwards, lifting that right knee off of the mat. Spinning our feet forwards, finding our forward fold, bending the knees, finding our goddess, finding that squat, our last set of squats, I promise. Testing Shiva squat on this side, testing Shiva squat on this side, trying to move as slowly as possible, as I did the second time, not as I did the first time. Opening the heart, bouncing those hips. We're going to bring those feet a little bit closer together as we lift that left foot off of the mat. Our hands can come to our heart. Cross that left leg over. We're going to find Eagle Pose, Gardasana. Arms come out long. The right arm comes underneath the left. We find our eagle arms, lifting those elbows to shoulder height. Opening the heart, pulling those shoulder blades down and back. Testing your balance on that right foot. Squatting the hips a little bit deeper. Taking a few balanced breaths of air here. Breathing yourself into stability. And release the feet. Release the hands. Bounce the hips. Open the heart. You're going to lift that right knee into the chest. Standing balance. Crossing that right leg over the left, finding eagle legs, keeping those hips low as in a chair pose. Our arms come out, the left arm underneath the right this time. Elbows come up to the height of the shoulders. We squeeze the palms together. Find your stability.
breathe yourself into a stable position. Noticing the rhythm of your heart beating. Noticing a solid drishti, solid focal point on the wall in front of you. Using these things to find your balance as we stand tall and release our feet back together. Finding a breath in our mountain pose. And I'll turn sideways so you can see me. For our last peak pose, we're working on the flying pigeon. So that begins with our figure 4 forward fold as we cross the left ankle over the right ankle over the left thigh and bow. So we can see if we can tuck these toes around this left shoulder. Right toes tuck around the left shoulder. See if we can place our weight into our hands and lift that left foot up and off the mat. Maybe staying here, maybe straighten the leg if you can push your weight far enough forwards. And so from the front, that looks like this. From our figure 4, we bow. These toes hook around the left shoulder. The lower you bow your hips, the more you can make like a shelf with your arms, bending those elbows just a little bit as you push your weight forwards. Hook those toes and use that to keep the right leg strong. And then you try to lift that left foot straight and out behind you. When you find it, or however you find that, we're going to set down into our pigeon pose. Taking a moment in our breathing. And come back onto our hands, lifting up tall, hands to our heart. You can bend the left foot, reach the left hand for it, finding a bind, maybe finding a mermaid, finding whatever is available for your practice today. Leaving that heart open. You can even stay in sleepy pigeon if that's what works best for you. Whatever works to regain your energy. We'll come back onto our hands. Lift that right knee off the mat. Lift that right foot to the outside of the hands. Make your way back to center. Standing tall in our mountain pose. And we have to even out our sides. So finding the weight on the right foot. The left foot comes up, so the left knee is tight into our heart. Lifting it tall, crossing this left ankle over that right leg. Finding stability as we fold forward. Hooking these toes around the outside of the right triceps as high up on the shoulder as you can get. So if it's all the way on the shoulder, that's better. Then you want to push out through the heel and really hook those toes. Try to make a little shelf with your arms. So from the side again, you can see here, the arms are straight like this. That's a lot more muscle challenging. If you have a little bit of a bend in the arms, you make a little bit of a shelf. When there's a shelf, it's easier to lift this foot, this right foot, up and off the mat. And then maybe you can lift it long. Open your heart and try to form a straight line in your flying pigeon. Finding this pose wherever it's available for you. Setting those toes down. And finding our pigeon. Meeting me here, however you get here, that's okay. From the pigeon, hips feel open. We can lift ourselves up. Lifting up from the top of the head as we grow tall. You can stay here in a lifted pigeon, Or you can bend that right foot, bend the right knee, point the toes. You can either stay here with a bind. I like to bend the elbow, really open up that quad. You can also add cow face arms for the mermaid. Sort of cow face arms, not exactly. Finding your version of pigeon and releasing down to the mat. Let's sit onto that left hip. Bring this right foot in to finish our butterfly Kapotasana. Just to notice the difference in the hips from where we began our practice to where we are now. How much easier it is to roll the calves forward and the thighs back and open those hips. I like to hook the big toes with my fingers and my thumbs, bend the elbows, and keep a flat back as I pull my heart to my toes. Exhaling all the way down. And inhaling back up tall. Finding your stability. We're going to bow again. This time you can bow the top of the head for your toes. Finding a forward fold. So we're bending the back, or folding the back forwards. You can look at your belly button. And then look up and release. Hands to our heart. And to the outsides of the legs. Bringing those knees in. We're going to twist long ways on the mat. As we roll onto our backs, bringing our arms out into a T, and cross those legs over to the right. Taking a moment as we breathe into the left shoulder, keeping that left shoulder rooted into the mat, equally with the right. And crossing our knees over to the left, keeping that right shoulder rooted, reaching through the fingertips. As you breathe into that side body and into the lower back, let's bring our knees into our heart. Lift our feet up tall. I like to bring my hands to the lower back. Bring my toes to the mat in front of me, above my head. And then vertebrae by vertebrae, release the full fold, releasing back flat onto the mat. Finding your Shavasana. Taking this moment, find that flat back, rolling the shoulder blades underneath you. And find your breathing. Where's the rhythm of the heart beating? Notice your breath, filling your body with energy and oxygen, with intention just to be here, to be present, to fill this form as we are here now. Finding that stillness. Noticing the blood coursing through your veins,
Filling every muscle we've worked today with the oxygen, with the nutrients that it needs for you to grow stronger, more capable, more aware with every breath of air, with every beat of your heart. Begin to bring that intention into your fingertips and your toes as you begin to wiggle them. Bring our knees to our heart. Rocking side to side. Rolling onto the right side body, using the arm as a pillow. And we'll lift ourselves up into a seated position. We have a few more minutes here, and I want to work on our seated meditation postures now that our hips are so open. So let's cradle our right leg into our arms. Give it a rock from side to side. Placing this right heel into the crease of the left hip. And finding our half lotus with the left heel just beneath that right hip. Noticing if this is working your hip, if this is giving you that grounding energy, releases some of the tensions from the lower back. And if this is where your practice is, you can stay here. If you'd like to work on the full lotus, you can bring this left heel so it's just in front of your right knee, and then bow forwards until that right knee comes down to the mat, keeping those left toes flexed so the ankle doesn't sickle. And then keeping that knee rooted into the mat, keeping these toes flexed. We can lift this foot and slide it inwards, bringing it in to that right hip. Keeping both toes pointed, lifting up with a long spine. Taking a few breaths here. Noticing how this posture can free up the energy flowing through the spine. You can imagine any anxieties or worries or any tensions that are carried throughout your life, in your mind, in your head. See them flowing to the back of the neck. And you can notice that energy moving down the spine, through the mid-back, all the way down the tailbone, and out the hips. Noticing yourself releasing these tensions that we all carry through our days. So you feel just a little bit lighter, a little bit more free. And we can release our feet to switch sides, unbinding this left leg and then the right. And this time we will put the left leg in our cradle, cradling that hip side to side. Taking any hip openers that work for you. Pointing the toe, placing this heel to the inside crease of the right leg. Pointing the toe. And finding half lotus, if this is a better posture for you. Keeping this toe pointed to protect the knee. If you want to go for the full lotus, Bring this heel out forwards, just enough that when we bow forwards, trying to keep our back flat as we bow, this knee should come close to the mat. Keeping that weight forwards. We can cross this heel to the inside of the left hip. Finding our half lotus on this side. Opening those hips. Opening the spine. Here we might imagine some energy coming into the body from the tailbone, from the earth. Find a grounding energy, find a stability, find some solid, consistent resonance with this posture that might work for you. Noticing the lightness, freeness of the lower back. Moving your awareness through the back, through every vertebrae, one by one. Finding space. Noticing how easy it becomes to move your awareness through your body, to control which part of the body we are aware of in this moment. As you move your awareness through the lower neck, the base of the skull, finding the very top of your head. Noticing a space the size of a coin at the very top of your head. Noticing all this energy that we have within us to work with at any moment that we need it, at any point throughout our day, throughout our week. Finding our own fulfillment in this posture, in any posture, just through our breathing, bring our awareness back where we began, to our breath energy. To notice each inhalation energizing the body, each exhalation releasing any tensions that built up inside. You can imagine yourself growing lighter with every breath. You can begin to put a little bit of intention behind every exhale. Just a little bit of oomph behind every release of energy. Whenever we get distracted or we lose our mindfulness, you can always just take a deep breath and know that it's that easy to let go of fear. Just take a few intentional breaths of air. It's all that we need to bring the mind into alignment with the body. Let's sit here for a minute together in silent meditation. Just to breathe, to explore the breath, and to become a connoisseur of every breath of air that we are gifted to breathe in this lifetime. we bring our hands to our hearts. To end our practice of meditation, it's always fitting to bring this gratitude for every breath of air and turn this into a sense of compassion and loving kindness for all other sentient beings that we may practice with today, all of you beautiful yogis sharing in this practice with me, to share this loving kindness, this peace energy that we have cultivated here today together. We can share this with everyone we cross paths with. That is just this beautiful, beautiful payoff of this practice of Yogasana. And I am so grateful to all of you for sharing in this practice with me this morning. The love and light in me honors that love and light in all of you. Namaste.